This is Support is Sexy, episode 561, with Tatianna Morales, also known as Tatianna Tarot. Welcome to Support is Sexy. I'm your host, Elaine Fluker, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I bring you inspiring women entrepreneurs who share their wins and lessons to help you take your business to the next level. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I'm super excited to have you here. It just would not be the same without you. And on today's episode, I so enjoyed this conversation with Tatianna Tarot. And Tatianna is a tarot card reader, and she talks about the importance of trusting your intuition, of going with flow, and of giving yourself some space. This is an episode or a conversation that I really needed to have. Giving yourself some space, some time to figure things out, and remembering that it doesn't have to look one way for it to work. So in this episode, she talks about, again, trusting your intuition, but also giving yourself some space to figure things out in your business especially. So for all of you listening as entrepreneurs, you're trying to figure out how things will work out, should work out, could work out in your business. Sometimes you just need to give it a little bit of space. All right, so I know you're going to enjoy this conversation, and you'll learn more about tarot card reading, which I didn't know a lot about. I've heard a lot about. I know a lot of friends who have done it. I'm considering it now, but it's a fantastic conversation, again, with Tatianna Tarot. Here we go. So Tatianna, thank you so much for joining me for an episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to chat with you.
Likewise, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited as well.
Of course. So our first question, when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
Very early in the game. My father is a creative entrepreneur, and he first started off as an actor. And so I got to have hands-on experience with him being an actor and him being a producer and a writer, and him orchestrating these plays in the East Village. And so he always had me along for the ride, just learning everything I could about marketing and what it took to really put a team together, and the hustling of it all, and flyer work. And so entrepreneurship has always been a part of my life. And I'm really fortunate to actually love getting into the nitty-gritty details and the learning of it all. You know, it's not as glamorous as it looks on social media sometimes. It's very taxing, very challenging, but I love the challenge. And again, there's something about just learning every step along the way and improving upon your growth that is very humbling and endearing to me.
And I love too that it sounds like you didn't just look at or fall in love with just the being on stage part. You very much learned about the behind the scenes part of it.
Absolutely. There's always been a behind the scenes factor that he made it an intention to integrate me into and just kind of expose me to without it being too much for a child, you know?
Mm-hmm. Right. Now, where did you grow up? Did you grow up in New York?
Yeah, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, Bed-Stuy.
Mm-hmm. How would you describe yourself as a young person growing up in Bed-Stuy?
Very rambunctious, extremely curious, loud and passionate, and nosy in the sense that it kind of translated to curiosity. I am always about learning to different cultures and history, ancient history, artistic, bold. Really like a child that wanted to be seen and really lived in, you know, like most children live within their imagination, right? And so always putting on plays and performances and playing make-believe and all that. So definitely out there as a kid.
What would you say were your aspirations for when you got older? Did you think you'd be a performer, or what were your dreams at the time?
Yes and no. So I've always had an affinity for these two career paths. One, which was being a dancer, a professional dancer. And as a young kid, I thought that would be ballet. Later on, as I evolved and grew up, I actually became a professional belly dancer, samba and salsa. So learning a lot of world dances and performing that and teaching that. In conjunction with that, I also wanted to be an Egyptologist. And I ended up studying that in university and living abroad for close to a year, specializing in archaeology and learning, the basics towards, digging a pottery and art history of that time and whatnot. So I actually ended up pursuing what I wanted to as a child.
Right, exactly. So then how did you evolve, or how did your career path or passions evolve to discovering, that you are a tarot intuitive?
So that's really interesting. Never in my life did I think that I'd be doing this, or actually have I really seriously considered launching a business. That translated into my current career now because I've always had an intuitive gift. Taro found me when I was 6, and I was always exposed to metaphysical lifestyle, metaphysical belief systems, and practices through my dad. He had a lot of eclectic books in his collection, including as an actor and entrepreneur. So he had a lot of business books, a lot of history books, and a lot of mythology books on acting. But then he'd also have creative visualization, or learn how to read your aura, or what are past lives and things of the sort. That I'm okay, I'm really interested in this little part of your library. But he always encouraged me to find my spiritual voice, define what God means to me, define that relationship and what really resonates with my heart. So I didn't grow up in a family that was predominantly religious. As long as my values were intact, as long as I respected everyone and I came with integrity, he was like, just go at it, explore what's meaningful to you. And so one of our outings, we used to go to Barnes and Nobles a lot of times just to read. And I found this tarot deck very young, and wasn't allowed to buy it, obviously, because I was 6 at the time, and that's not really a game for a child. But I used a playing card deck in my grandma's house, thinking that I could read fortunes. And it's really odd and bizarre because I didn't have anyone in the family mirroring that sort of behavior or talking about divination. And I don't even know where I got it from, but that is something that I carried on with me for the rest of my life. I would read people during lunchtime. Now translating into high school, I would read a lot of my friends, word of mouth got out. And that would just be something I would do on the side until I started performing as a dancer. And my dad was like, I heard this NPR interview with this lady who quit her corporate job to start an online business in tarot, teaching tarot. And she taught herself, and now this business is ranking over $1 million a year. And, this is something that you've always had a gift in. And now, you have the personality, you're very marketable, you're doing dancing on the side. I know you're concerned about the longevity of your career and doing something that allows you the freedom to just, travel and do your work from where you're at. And he's like, you should really consider making this an online business and building it. And so he really planted the seed, and that's how that kind of came to be. I was really struggling for some time to marry both worlds of, being a professional instructor and a choreographer and a dancer, and then learning how to be a spiritual entrepreneur when I didn't really have many resources or mentors out there to mirror from. I had to just kind of just learn every step of the way myself and just figure out, is this a thing? And how am I going to throw myself out there? What are the variables of me making money aside from just offering services? How do I do events now and et cetera, et cetera. So Yeah, it was just, I guess you can say it was like a fated turn of events that led me into this path.
Well, I love that.
I was going to say, otherwise I would have just done it as a side thing.
Right. I love that. First of all, shout out to your dad. I love that he was the person that was like, I see this woman, I heard about this woman doing online, creating an online business from tarot readings. And this is something you should consider, which I just love that he was thinking that way. And that sort of prompted you to look into just a new way of offering your gift to the world, right? To be able to do it many people to one, or just expanding. It just sounded like he was giving you a suggestion for how you could expand in general. Your work, but just as a person too. And I think that's so real. A lot of us, what you said, you were struggling for a while trying to figure out how to marry both worlds of what you want to do, and some of us are in that now or have gone through that and figuring it out. So it's good to hear someone. One, having support from your dad, or people looking out, giving you suggestions, but then also, you sound like you had to experiment with it a little bit.
Oh yeah. Amen. Yeah, it was a struggle. I mean, just growing up in New York and being a performer, that in and of itself, very freelance work, hustle, waking up super early, working like a 9-to-5 job, and then going to teach classes, and then using the rest of your evenings to perform, or to take some studio time to create material to perform with, then taking the rest of that time to build an online platform. I would find this interesting pattern where certain months would be a boost of just dance work, and then that would really dramatically decline in terms of my tarot work. And then certain months would just be a boost of tarot work, and then my dance work would tremendously decline too. So I was just like, how can I thrive in both areas? And really, the further along I got into pursuing tarot, the more I realized that this is an entity in and of itself that wants to sustain itself, that's really, ongoing, like a machine that's just, that keeps on rolling like the Energizer Bunny. And I would have to choose a path. Because I just started getting super busy on both avenues, and there was really no way for me to properly give the attention that I wanted in one factor without sacrificing the other. So that's when I really made the decision to jump into tarot full time and kind of wean myself off of dancing, because I found it wasn't as rewarding. Definitely not as financially lucrative without exhausting myself energetically, just an immense amount of travel, an immense amount of physical labor. Whereas tarot, I saw myself expanding into different roles, not just as a tarot reader, but learning how to brand myself, learning the strategies of such, learning, accounting, learning marketing, learning coaching, learning different healing modalities. So I saw myself more as a multifaceted person with tarot, whereas dance was just kind of boxed into this little realm of, this is what I can do. This is the extent of that. And, it just seemed a little bit more labor intensive.
Now, was it difficult for you to make the choice between the two, because dance is something you obviously loved so much? And I ask that because, again, a lot of women listening who are entrepreneurs or want to be are probably in that place where you're wondering if it's time to make a decision between one or the other, or you're trying to do both, and maybe both things aren't working and it's because you're trying to do both, or maybe both things are working and you feel overwhelmed doing both. So I'm wondering for you, what was the choice like? What was the moment like, I should say, when you made the choice?
Very difficult. It felt like I was sacrificing a passion of mine. I got to say that it's definitely not easy. I went from being a really phenomenal dancer, in my opinion, to just stopping my craft, stopping practicing so that I could just dedicate that time to, really learning about business, taking business courses, or just, working my site or adding more services. And so I still get feelings of guilt. However, I must say that because of the dedication and the sacrifice that I've made then, I now have the leisure time to set aside and start pursuing dance again. Of course, it's not going to be in the same form as it was before, like maybe performing aggressively on a professional level, but I can jump in and start considering, okay, I still have it in me. I'm going to have to get back to my practice. I'm going to have to start training. I'm going to have to put myself out there. But yeah, why can't I start teaching and maybe doing a performance once every couple of months or once a month? Why can't I start maybe incorporating my main hustle in the past as a new side hustle? Now that this, tarot business has the proper foundations, can sustain itself. I have a regular schedule, it's like an operating office, that I have that in tow. I can now focus on something else that is completely different.
Right. I love that. It's like it can look a different way. And sometimes we think it has to look, this way, or like it had to be dance and tarot, or it had to be whatever. And then giving it some space, sounds like, giving it a break for a while, giving it some space, it can exist in another way. I think that's good for people to catch. It doesn't have to look one way.
Right. And just trying to juggle both things at once. Not only was it exhausting, but it was affecting me creatively. Whereas, the pursuit of dance was once fun and I was coming up with so many creative ideas, I found myself struggling in terms of artistic expression, becoming a little bit self-conscious of my just, my method of dance and whatnot. And I really felt like it was a sign to just kind of step back for some time, like take a break for a year and to really find the purpose of why I'm doing what I'm doing. Maybe through pursuing tarot, I'll find my creative voice again, or come through with a different perspective, feel refreshed. And I really feel like that's what I've gained in sacrificing that. And I'm ready to go in and from a more mature standpoint than I was before.
Now, for those of us who don't know exactly what tarot is and how it works, can you give us an explanation of it?
Sure. So tarot are 78 cards that pertain to a specific traditional system. And these cards are part of a divination art. And so divination is the art of reading energy, being to dissect and just pick up on what sort of energy lies around you and within you through the art of storytelling. So every card is illustrated. Every card has a particular theme and an archetype that's universal to the human experience. And by really interpreting the symbols in the cards, the combinations, of course, utilizing your own intuitive voice, you get to pick up on a lot of subtleties that happen in your everyday life that you may not be aware of because we've got so many things going on. So tarot is a way of you just becoming a little bit more conscious and enlightened about your own personal energy and how you project that into the world and your belief systems and the patterns that you experience on a day-to-day basis or more collectively in cycles. It gives you a sense of empowerment to know maybe why you're acting the way you are, and it helps you get more in tune with your spirit and the messages that your spirit is trying to translate you in subtle ways. So I see it as a fun game, essentially, that is not here to predict your future because, you're in control with that, and the Most High also has a say. But if anything, it's going to let you know, based on the patterns and cycles you exhibit, what path you're most likely to go on. And it will give you hints like, oh, let's say hypothetically speaking, you drink excessively, and you drink excessively because you have this horrible heartbreak that has not been healed. Then the tarot pulls up all these symbols that talk about, sadness and grief, and you needing to maybe jump on a boat and cross this bridge of water that's like giving you the illustration of making peace with these emotions that are uncontrollable, right? So that you can come closer to the sun, which is more clarity in your life, which is joy, which is happiness. It might give you hints towards this heartbreak in the past that you didn't even realize is the reason why you've been drinking so much, right? But it's telling you essentially in a storyline, okay, what's the most probable outcome based on the energy that I've been exhibiting? And of course, there's a possibility for you to fall in accordance to that storyline, but everyone also has free will. So maybe that sort of card spread inspires you to change and gives you the insight that you needed to know, like, oh, I really need to find closure in this relationship dynamic. I really need to check myself and discipline myself not to drink so much, or I need to really go seek out therapy, or, do a personal ritual for myself to find peace with what happened. And so that's just like a little example, a very dramatic example.
No, it's good. It's good. You illustrated it perfectly. I could tell you're a storyteller. That was perfect. So for us to know, does it mean then tarot, what cards will be pulled or what will be revealed to you, it's going to be different depending on what you're going through at the time? So it's not like a one-time thing. I had a reading and this is what it is.
Well, it depends, because for the most part, yes, cards will differ based on the energy that you bring in. And, our energy shifts on a day-to-day basis, like how you were exuding energy in the wee hours of the morning is probably not the same that you're going to exude in after work in the evening, right? So sometimes cards will certainly pick up on the grand scheme of things and show you a particular pattern that has been working in your life for the past couple of months. And if you are not keen to that pattern, if you haven't fully integrated the message or the energy of that they're trying to convey, it's very possible that you come back months later and still get those same repeating cards over and over. Which is like, I would say that it's your spirit, or it's your intuition, it's your higher self that's really trying to give you a message like, hey, you really need to pick up on what's to come or what you're going through, because it's probably the case that you're too in your head and you're not aware of your power to shift your energy, to shift your actions, to shift your perspective, and to empower yourself to do better and evolve. It is really a tool of evolution, and it just has so many taboos around it that I think people stray away from it because they're just too scared, or they don't want to be accountable.
Telling, and you're going to pull a card that just says, I'm on this path to doom or something. Mm-hmm, it's a misunderstanding of it.
Absolutely. But I find that after reading so many clients and giving them tarot sessions, most of the time, everybody already knows the information that's conveyed to them in some shape or form. They just needed some external substance, whether it be, a card or another person giving them that sort of validation or wake up call. Because a lot of the times, the information just resonates. It's like, I know where that's coming from, or that makes sense, or I could tell that person in my life felt that way, or I was heading towards this particular avenue. I knew that, but I didn't know whether I could trust that instinct or not, or I didn't want to believe it, or I didn't want to hear it, So there are a lot of variables as to why someone would be open or closed to the information at hand, but it's almost always the case that it's not like a surprise,
Right. Now, in setting up your business, your online business, especially for, doing tarot for people, how did you set it up? Do you work with clients all around the world, and do they make an appointment with you for a reading, or are you doing courses, or what other kind of things are you doing or planning to do in your business to support your gift?
So I certainly have, I think my most common offering is the virtual sessions, I would call them. So I can link up with clients anywhere around the world, and preferably so I'll use the mediums of FaceTime, Skype, Google Hangout, maybe Zoom once in a blue moon. But that way we can interact virtually. I think a lot of people who are new to divination and tarot, they want to see what's going on. They want to be able to see me. They want to be able to read my energy. They want to be able to feel like they're connecting with a friend, and it's not so mysterious and scary. It's talking to a close friend, and I'm guiding them, and I'm giving them comfort and wisdom, right? So there's that option, of course. And that's for locals, people in America, or people internationally. We can also opt for a call. Also, people who are in New Orleans, we can have an in-person session. Sometimes people really just want to connect with me in person and do it old school. Sometimes people just don't have the luxury of setting out a private space in their home to do the readings, or they don't want their partners to know, or their family to know, or their colleagues to know if the only time that they have is during work. So we'll do an in-person session. I also offer a lot of workshops. I travel abundantly, especially back home. So I know there's a big call for this work, particularly with women of color who are coming into their power, who want to explore their spiritual knowledge and gifts. And so I offer a lot of intuitive classes. I offer classes on divination and how to read. I offer classes on ritual and how to perform ritual, how to heal. I also offer this online as a virtual workshop. I have a webinar. I'm working on a series. And I do retreats as well. Mm-hmm. I'll be going to Grenada in about 2 weeks for a spiritual retreat. So beautiful. Caribbean's where it's at. And end of the month, I'll be doing a retreat also in New Orleans.
So are you based in New Orleans? I heard you mention people can do in person in New Orleans. Are you living in New Orleans now?
Mm-hmm. I've been living here for 2 years.
Oh, nice. Okay. And then you mentioned there's a lot of work for you back home. Is that back in New York when you said back home?
Yes. Excuse me. Yeah.
Okay. No, I just want to know so people get a sense of where you are. Yeah, that's awesome. So I love too that it sounds like you, even beyond tarot, like doing work with teaching people about intuition, or teaching them how to embrace their power or own their power. It sounds like, especially the women, as you mentioned. So there's so many other things that go along with this, not just card readings.
Absolutely. Because supply and demand, right?
Right.
So what's really funny is that I got pregnant last year, and that takes a big toll when you're doing a lot of spiritual work or a lot of energetic labor. Even for people who are social workers or therapists, there's a lot of, back and forth banter and hearing a lot of stories that can be emotionally draining. And it's the same with tarot. Usually people who request a session, it's not that everything is like sunshine and rainbows. That there's a sense of urgency for consultation. So as I was pregnant, I found myself really stepping away from the role of a tarot practitioner, and I felt that my work is very intuitive. So I'll just let spirit lead the way and give me guidance on what I need to do next for my business. And I felt that I was getting a lot of random opportunities to teach. And I always had the notion to inevitably throw myself out there, but I wasn't being proactive in it. But when I had this local business owner approach me about doing a tarot reading series at her shop, that's when I really started developing different workshops and curriculums and traveling with those workshops, because there was like this calling from my market, a lot of my clients that wanted to, use this modality at home. I always encourage people to learn the tarot because it's just, a tool for self-awareness, and it's fun and it helps develop you in so many ways. And I always want to leave them with something in which they're helping themselves get better, and they're not using this as a crutch. Like, oh my God, I need validation all the time. I have no concept of making decisions for myself or trusting my gut. Mm-hmm. So the classes were birthed as like a labor of love. Like, let me teach you how you can do this yourself so you don't have to rely on anyone else. And so that's how it kind of came to be. Well, and that way I didn't have to expend so much energy as I was pregnant, reading people I was teaching. Mm-hmm.
Right. Again, like we said earlier, it doesn't have to look one way, right? You can find many ways to do it.
Absolutely.
What advice would you say you have for women who may have a similar gift and they're trying to figure out themselves how to offer it to others through a service or a business? What would you say should be the first step for them?
Well, I think we're definitely in the age of social media. We're in a place where you see more women of color being entrepreneurial, spiritual entrepreneurs. So feel free to reach out to those people you feel that are really doing the work and are thriving. Feel free, like, do your research, go on Google and see if there are any maybe business classes. I know that there is a need to have like spiritual business classes for this market, but I know of certain practitioners that do offer it. I would say be proactive, like send an email, ask for tips and advice, or schedule maybe a virtual session in which you can have one-on-one coaching. Don't stray away from other people's businesses that can be an inspiration that have absolutely nothing to do with the intuitive arts. I get my inspiration from photographers or lifestyle bloggers or other mothers and brand strategists and people who really don't have anything to do with metaphysical businesses, but I can apply a lot of the tools and tactics that they use in their business to my business. Mm-hmm. So it's about being inquisitive. It's about being proactive with your resources, because we have a plethora of resources out there, and thinking outside of the box, because the more creative that you are, the more solutions you will find. Being solution oriented is absolutely a plus. Time management is absolutely a plus. Just using Google.
Google is a plus, exactly. Google and YouTube University, as they say.
Mm-hmm. And of course, continuing educating yourself in your craft. What is not being presented out there, with something that you're gifted in or something that you can provide to your clients or the masses that's not being done.
What would you say entrepreneurship has taught you about yourself as a woman?
That's an amazing question. Entrepreneurship has taught me accountability. Mm-hmm. It has taught me to show up when I am passionate to show up and when I absolutely don't want to show up. It has taught me a great deal about boundaries, and it's taught me a great deal about what I just mentioned, which is just being solution oriented, because no one has a blueprint for the type of vision you're holding in your brain except for yourself. You're going to have to make that up. Mm. You're not going to be able to go to a store and be like, I want to be a da-da-da-da-da for dummies. Let me get this book and then try step one. No, A lot of it is just problem solving and hustling with conviction, really having faith in yourself, knowing that, okay, if one avenue doesn't open up, I'm going to have to be like Moses and make, part the seas and make something work. And so there is this, inner drive and this inner hunger that, is implied in being an entrepreneur that makes you feel like, okay, well, if I can succeed in this avenue, then I'm really unstoppable in anything else. Mm-hmm. So I think that's it's gifted to me.
So in closing, if you think over your life and career and you had the chance to thank only one person, whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would that be and what would you say?
Of course, I would have to thank my father because he was the catalyst. And I would say, what I always tell him is I'm eternally grateful for the footsteps that you've taken in your own career, for being fearless and wanting to be an artist as a single parent, and even daring to become an entrepreneur as a single parent in New York City, and allowing me to partake in your work every step of the way, because really those younger years molded me to who I am today. And you know, my father has a militant background, so at the time I wasn't very happy with the discipline that he has instilled in me. The amount of writing I had to do, because instead of getting punished, I would have to write these long essays as to why I'm getting
why
punished.
You did that thing wrong.
Yeah, and like 3 ways I can resolve it and the root of my problems. And it really instilled a lot of critical thinking and made me very passionate to be a writer. It really made me very dedicated to my craft and disciplined, and all of that. All of that is what I take. It's something that I couldn't have learned in school, business school. And I'm just like eternally grateful that it translates into any passion that I pursue. So thank you for that, Papa.
Love it. That's great, Papa. Good job.
Yeah.
Now, what are the ways that we can support you? Tell everyone your website. I'm sure people might want to know how to get a reading with you or schedule some time with you. But your website, social media, all that good stuff. And I'll make sure I link to everything.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So if you guys are interested in booking a session with me or want to learn more about my life and my journey, you're more than welcome to check out my site. It is www.myurbanillumination.com. My social media outlets are at Tatianna Tarot, and that's TATIANNA. And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter. And as for my retreat coming up, you can go to BayouMagicBikeTours.com and find out more about that at the end of October.
Bayou, BAYOU, Bayou Magic. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Bayou Magic Bike Tours. .com. Okay. Excellent. Fantastic. Tatianna, thank you so much. I learned a lot about, I feel like I knew some about tarot. I don't think I've done a tarot reading before. I'm trying to remember, but I feel like I would love it. But I've always been intrigued by it. I know people who do on both sides, who get readings and who do readings. But yes, thank you so much for educating us, and for all those spiritual entrepreneurs out there who are trying to figure out how to, one, be of service to many and to do different things in their business as you're doing. So I'm just grateful to you for sharing all of that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
This has been a ball.
Excellent. Good. Now, before you go, what's a parting piece of advice from you to our listeners about anything?
Don't try to have all the pieces in tow. Just go out there and do it. A little bit goes a long way. I know a lot of us are perfectionists. A lot of us over-rationalize our approach and dwell on the vision and the passion that we want to project out into the world, and we never get anything done because of that. Just act, create, and take it one step at a time. You have more than enough time to accomplish your goals and your dreams. Trust me, it's not a rat race, but you got to start rather than doing nothing at all.
That's right. Excellent. Tatianna, thank you so much. Hold on just a moment. All right. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Tatianna. To find out more about her, to get in touch with her, to find out more about her services and what she's up to, make sure you go to supportissexy.com. Go to that search box and just type in Tatianna, TATIANNA. Her show notes page will pop up with links, resources, all the ways to get in touch with her. Supportissexy.com and just search Tatianna. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you know just how much I appreciate you. As I always say, it would not be the same without you. Now, until we chat again next time, I want you to trust your intuition and always remember support is sexy and having it all doesn't mean doing it all alone. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.